The stars above Virine 6 were calm, but the planet below was wild and full of strange life. The deep space scout ship Hope Seeker floated in low orbit, watching the surface like a hawk watches the grass. Inside the ship, a young human scout named... Milo checked his screen. He had dark hair, calm eyes, and a voice that stayed soft even during storms. Milo's mission was simple. He had to scan the southern jungles of Virine 6 for any signs of life that had not been recorded. Most of the planet was quiet. There were plants with red leaves and birds that sang in 3 tones. There were no cities, no lights, and no signs of people. Still, Milo had a strange feeling in his chest, like something was waiting for him down there. He stepped into his small hoverpod and dropped through the clouds. The jungle spread below like a giant green ocean. Leaves waved in the wind, and tall trees touched the clouds. He flew lower, following a flickering heat signal that had appeared on his scanner for just a few seconds. That was enough to make him curious. Milo was not the kind of person to ignore mystery. The hoverpod landed softly on a flat patch near a river. Milo stepped out and looked around. The air was warm and smelled like wet fruit and wood. Insects buzzed, and the trees made soft creaking sounds as they moved. He held a small device that tracked movement, but nothing showed up. Still, he kept walking. Vines wrapped around the trees like snakes sleeping in loops. Bright birds flew over his head, and strange blue frogs watched him from tree trunks. Milo walked slowly, careful not to make too much noise. He passed through thick bushes and stepped over roots that seemed to grow with each breath. Then something moved. It was fast. A shape slipped between the trees just ahead. Milo stopped. He didn't reach for his weapon. Instead, he stood still and waited. The shape moved again. It was not an animal. It was not like the birds or frogs. It moved on 2 feet. A person. From behind a wide tree, a girl stepped out. She had soft green skin and silver hair that fell to her shoulders. Her eyes were large and bright, like twin moons. She was not wearing anything, but she did not look ashamed. She looked calm and strong, like the jungle itself. She stared at Milo without fear. Milo did not move. He opened his water flask and slowly held it out. The girl tilted her head. She walked forward without sound. She was barefoot, but her steps made no noise. She looked at the flask, sniffed it, and then took a small sip. Her eyes widened. She took another sip and gave the flask back. Milo smiled. He pointed to himself and said his name slowly, Milo. The girl blinked. Then she pointed to her chest and said one word. Nara, her voice was soft but clear. She stepped back into the trees but stopped a few steps away. She looked at Milo once more and then disappeared into the green. Milo waited a minute, but she did not return. He looked at the spot where she had vanished and spoke quietly to himself. So there is life here after all. He turned and walked back to his hoverpod. He did not report what he saw to the command ship. Not yet. He wanted to understand more first. That night on the Hope Seeker, Milo could not sleep. He kept thinking about the girl. Nara. Why was she alone in the jungle? What was she doing there with no clothes, no tools, and no fear he looked at? His screen again and saw no signs of life where he had landed. The scanner had missed her. The next morning, he packed a bag with fruit bars, water, and a soft blanket. He flew back to the same place and walked the same path. This time, he stopped near the wide tree and sat down. He waited. An hour passed. A bird sang above. Leaves moved. Then a soft rustle came from the left. Nara stepped out again. Her hair was still wet from the river. She looked at him with the same calm eyes. Milo held out a fruit bar. She walked over, took it, unwrapped it, slowly, and ate it with small bites. Her face changed as she tasted it. She smiled. Milo placed the blanket on the ground and pointed at it. Nara touched it with her hand. She rubbed it between her fingers and then picked it up. She wrapped it around her shoulders but let it fall again after a few seconds. She said something in a language Milo did not understand. He turned on his translator and recorded her voice. It would take time to learn her words. He sat on the ground and drew a picture in the dirt. A picture of Earth, then a ship, then a tree, then a person. He pointed to her. She looked at the drawing and then added her own lines. A symbol like a star, a circle, and a crack through it. Milo knew then she had not come from the jungle. She had come from something else, maybe a crash, maybe a lost world. Nara placed her hand on her chest again and said her name clearly. Nara. Then she pointed at him and said, Milo. He smiled. A real smile. The jungle around them felt quiet, but not empty. It felt like it was watching. And somewhere deep in those trees, secrets were waiting. Milo stood up and nodded at her. He would return tomorrow. He had many questions, but for now he had a name, Nara, and she was real. Milo returned the next morning before sunrise. The jungle was quiet and filled with fog. Birds were not singing yet. The trees stood tall like sleeping giants. His hoverpod rested near the river again. He carried the same small bag, but this time it had more things. Fruit bars, soft bread, a light cotton shirt, and sandals. He walked the same path through the green leaves and thick roots. His boots made soft crunching sounds on the ground. He reached the wide tree and waited again. He sat cross-legged, placed the food in front of him, and looked around. The jungle watched him, but said nothing. A slow rustle came from the right side. Milo turned his head and smiled. Nara was there. She stepped out from behind a tall plant. Her silver hair was dry today. Her skin looked clean, like she had bathed in the river. She wore a necklace made of small red seeds. She still had no clothes, but she held the blanket he gave her. It was wrapped around her waist like a skirt. She looked at him and gave a small smile. Milo stood and bowed his head a little. Then he pointed to the food. She walked over and sat on the ground with ease. She picked up the bread, sniffed it, and took a bite. She made a soft sound of surprise and took another bite. Milo watched her with quiet joy. He turned on his translator and showed her pictures on his screen, a tree, a river, a sky. He pressed the words and let her hear them. Nara copied each one. Her voice was soft and clear. She pointed at a leaf nearby and said the word, leaf. Then she pointed at the river and said, water. Milo nodded and gave her a big smile. She learned fast, faster than any human child. He gave her the shirt next. It was light and smooth. She touched it, with care, then held it up. She tried to put it on but frowned. She pulled it away and shook her head. She said something in her language and made a motion like vines wrapping around her. Milo watched and understood what she meant. The shirt felt like a trap to her, like something pulling her. She did not like it. He did not force her. Instead, he showed her the sandals. She touched them, smelled them, then tried to put them on. She stood up and walked a few steps. Then she took them off and walked barefoot again. She smiled and said a new word from his screen-free. Milo laughed softly. He pointed at her and said, Smart. Nara looked at him, tilted her head and asked. Smart. He nodded. She smiled again. They spent the next hour trading words. She pointed at things and waited for names. He gave them. She repeated each one 2 times. Sometimes she corrected his own words when he made a mistake. Milo was amazed. Then she drew something in the dirt again. A strange shape, a circle with a line through it and 3 dots. She looked at him, serious now. She pointed to the sky and then to herself. Milo did not understand fully, but he guessed. You came from above. She nodded slowly. He showed her a small picture of a spaceship on his tablet. She pointed and nodded again. Then she drew a broken shape next to it. She said a word that sounded like fall. Milo felt a chill in his chest. She had crashed here. maybe alone. Maybe as the only survivor he wanted to ask more, but her eyes looked tired. He stopped the questions and offered her water again. She drank and looked up at the tall trees. Birds began to sing above them now. The jungle was waking up. Nara stood and walked to a tree. She climbed it with ease, jumping between branches like it was her home. Milo watched from below, amazed by her balance and speed. She picked a strange fruit from a high branch and brought it down. She gave it to him. Milo took it and bit into it. The taste was sweet and cold, like morning rain. He gave her a thumbs up. She tilted her head, unsure. He showed her what it meant. Good, she copied the motion good. They sat together until the sun rose higher. The light came through the trees in golden beams. Nara closed her eyes and let the warmth touch her face. Milo did the same. For a moment, they both forgot they were from different worlds. Milo stood and looked at her. I have to go now. She frowned. Go. He pointed at the sky and made a motion like flying. Then he placed his hand on his heart and said, I will come back. She looked at him for a long moment. Then she nodded once. She picked up a stone and handed it to him. It was smooth and shaped like a tear. He took it and placed it in his pocket. Milo walked back to his hoverpod. He looked behind once. Nara was still standing there, watching him. Her silver hair moved with the wind, her eyes still bright like moons. He flew up and vanished through the clouds back on the Hope Seeker. Milo sat in his small room. He looked at the stone she gave him. Then he looked at the scanner. Still no signs of life from the jungle. Nara was not a signal on a screen. She was more, and she was waiting. Milo visited the jungle every day now. He brought fresh food, soft blankets, clean water, and more language tools. Nara was learning faster than he expected. She could say full sentences now. Sometimes simple, sometimes clever. She asked many questions. Her favorite word was why. She stayed barefoot. She wore only the blanket like a skirt, and sometimes beads she made herself. She still refused shirts. They felt like traps. She liked to feel the wind on her skin. She said it helped her think. They talked under trees, near rivers, and on top of big rocks. Milo showed her more pictures of Earth. Nara listened with wide eyes when he told stories of cities, flying cars, oceans, and music. She said Earth sounded loud. He agreed, but said some places were quiet too. She asked about clothes again. He explained people on Earth wear them for many reasons: warmth, safety, culture. But he also said he would never force her. Nara smiled and said thank you in 3 languages one day while they shared fruit near the river. Milo heard a sharp buzzing sound above the trees. He looked up and saw a small black drone flying fast across the sky. He stood up quickly. His eyes followed. The drone, as it passed and disappeared, Nara noticed his face. She asked. Bad Milo nodded. That drone was not from his ship. He pulled out his scanner and searched. Nothing showed. No life signs. No signals. But he knew what he saw. Someone else was here. Nara stood and looked around. Her ears twitched. She said something in her old language. The translator gave one word. Hunt Milo felt a cold knot in his stomach. He looked at her and asked, did someone follow you here? She closed her eyes and stayed silent. Then she nodded once. That night, Milo sat in his room on the Hope Seeker. He opened a private message link and typed a report to command. He told them there might be other explorers on Vereen 6. He did not mention Nara. He saved the report, but did not send it. The next day, he flew back to the jungle with more supplies. This time, he brought a small sensor unit. He placed it in the trees near Nara's home. It would beep if anything flew or walked near it. Nara watched him set it up. She asked. If it was a shield, he shook his head. Just a warning, she nodded. Then she said something that made him pause, many eyes in sky. Some not kind Milo wanted to ask what that meant, but she looked tired, like she remembered something heavy. Later, while walking along the river, a wild beast jumped out from the bushes. It had 6 legs, yellow fur, and sharp teeth. It moved fast, and came straight for Milo before he could pull his weapon. Nara stepped forward. She placed her hand on the ground and let out a loud sound from deep in her throat. It was not a scream. It was more like a call. The beast stopped. Its ears twitched. It looked confused. Then it turned and ran back into the trees. Milo stared at her in shock. She stood still, breathing slow. She looked at him and said one word voice. He asked, "Your voice scared it." She nodded power. That night Milo did not sleep. He kept thinking about her voice. That call was not normal. It was not something humans could do. It had stopped a wild beast in 1 second. She was more than just a jungle survivor. Next day, the sensor beeped. Milo's screen flashed red. Something had entered the area near Nara's home. Not a beast, not a bird. Something flying low and quiet. He rushed down in his hoverpod, landed near the river, ran through the trees, calling her name. Nara, she came running from the left. She was safe, but scared. She said she saw something shining above her. A silver eye. Milo checked the sky. No drone now, but it had been there. He was sure. They moved to a new spot, deeper in the forest, near a cave behind a waterfall. Nara said it was a safe place. She had hidden there before Milo placed more sensors around the area. He also built a small shelter with thin walls and a roof. Nara helped him. She knew which leaves were strong and which wood did not rot fast. She laughed while building. She said, "It felt like playing." Milo smiled but kept looking at the sky. He felt eyes watching from somewhere. That evening, as they sat near a small fire, Milo gave her a thin cloth bag. Inside was a soft robe made from light fabric. No tight sleeves, no buttons. Just a wrap she could tie or untie easily. She held it and looked at him. "This not trap." He shook his head. "Only if you want it." She put it on slowly. It moved with the wind and felt soft on her skin. She said, "Wind can still touch me." Milo nodded. She smiled and said, "Thank you." The fire crackled beside them. The jungle was quiet again, but Milo knew the peace would not last long. Someone else was out there, watching and maybe waiting. Milo stood at the edge of the landing bay on the Hope Seeker. His heart was heavy, but his mind was clear. Nara stood beside him, quiet and calm, wearing the soft robe he had given her. Her silver hair was tied with jungle vines. Her feet were still bare. Her eyes looked at everything with wonder. For days now, Milo had hidden her deep in the jungle. He had guarded her, taught her, and helped her stay safe. But that drone changed everything. It was time to bring her to the human world. He had spoken, with command, and told them the truth. Not the full truth, but enough. He said she was peaceful, intelligent, and needed help. They did not like it. Commander Wren called him reckless. He said alien life must be kept under watch. Milo stood firm. He said she was not a test subject. She was a person. He said he would take responsibility for her. After long hours of argument, they agreed, but they gave him rules. She would stay in his quarters. She would wear tracking bands. She would not speak to others without permission. Milo accepted all rules but one. No cages. The ship lifted from Vereen 6 and moved toward Earth. Nara stood by the window watching the stars. She said they looked like seeds floating in black water. Milo laughed at her words. He said most people just called them stars. She said that was boring. As the ship moved through space, Milo helped her learn more about human life. He showed her pictures of cities, trains, parks, and food. She learned about clothes, shoes, hats, and stores. Her eyes lit up when he showed her shops full of colors, So many colors, Milo told her about shopping. He said people go to shops to choose what they like. Nara asked if she could choose too. He said yes. Her smile stretched wide when they reached Earth. The city was covered in light and noise. Cars moved in lines, people rushed on foot, tall towers touched the clouds. Nara looked out the window and whispered, "Sky forests." Milo laughed again. They landed at a spaceport hidden from public view. Security watched closely. Drones flew overhead. Doctors scanned Nara from a distance. She stood still and did not speak. Milo stayed beside her, holding her hand. She did not wear the tracking band. Milo had argued until they gave up on that demand. He took her to his home in a quiet part of the city. It was small but clean. 2 rooms, 1 window with a view of trees. Nara touched every object in the house. The light switch, the water tap, the floor tiles. Everything was new and strange. She asked many questions. Milo made her tea. She tasted it and said it was like drinking leaves and smoke. She liked it. The next morning, Milo took her out for the first time. Not to the busy streets, not to the government labs. He took her to a quiet shopping center far from the city heart. The people there moved slowly. No flashing lights, no loud machines. Nara walked beside him, still barefoot. She refused to wear shoes. Milo carried them in a bag just in case. They entered a clothing shop with soft lights and calm music. Nara stopped at the doorway and looked around. So many colors, so many shapes, fabrics hanging like waterfalls. She walked slowly between the rows. She touched a red scarf and laughed. She pressed her face to a soft green dress and closed her eyes. She picked up a long blue robe and twirled with it. Her joy was clear. The shopkeeper, an older woman with kind eyes, walked over. She looked at Nara with surprise but did not speak. She saw the way Milo watched the girl and understood something was special here. Nara tried on different clothes behind a curtain. Some were too tight, some too rough. Some made her laugh. She came out wearing a long white robe with flower patterns. It moved like water when she walked. She asked Milo, "This is good." He nodded. "You look peaceful." She smiled and said, "I feel soft like cloud." They walked through other shops. Nara picked beads, bangles, and a small bag shaped like a leaf. Milo bought her light sandals, though she still walked without them. They sat outside and ate sweet bread and fruit ice. Nara tasted the fruit ice and gasped. She said it felt like snow inside her mouth. She asked if Snow was alive. Milo said no. She said it tasted like something with secrets. As they walked back to the transport station, people stared. Some pointed. A few smiled. One young girl ran up and gave Nara a small flower. Nara took it gently and placed it behind her ear. She said, "This world has kind hearts too." Back at Milo's place, Nara took off her robe and folded it neatly. She placed it near her sleeping spot and sat by the window. She looked at the sky. Milo sat beside her. He asked if she was happy. She nodded. But then she said one strange thing. "The stars feel far away here, like they are watching from behind glass." Milo asked if she missed the jungle. She nodded again, but then she added, "The jungle was wild and free. But this place has choice, and I like choice." Milo smiled and said, "Then we will find a way for both outside." The stars began to shine. Inside, the alien girl from the jungle looked peaceful under Earth's light. She had walked among humans. She had touched their cloth, tasted their food, and heard their sounds. And she had smiled through it all. She was not just a visitor now, she was learning how to belong. The city was quiet that morning. A soft wind moved between the tall buildings. Sunlight touched the glass towers. Birds flew between power lines. Milo stepped outside his home and looked up. It was a good day. Inside, Nara was already awake. She sat near the window, her silver hair shining in the sunlight. She wore the same white robe she had chosen from the shop. The flower given to her by the little girl was still behind her ear, now dry but still beautiful. She looked calm, but her eyes showed excitement. Milo asked, "Are you ready?" Nara nodded quickly. "More shops today." Milo smiled. She had been waiting all night. She wanted to see more of the human world, not just from screens, not just from windows. She wanted to walk, to touch, to choose, and Milo had promised he would take her. They left together. This time they walked through a small market in the open air. People sold handmade items, baskets, paintings, clothes made of natural fiber. Nara touched each item with care. She asked about their names, about their use, about the people who made them. A man was selling small wind chimes. Nara picked one made of wood and leaves. She held it close to her ear and smiled as it sang in the breeze. Milo bought it for her. She tied it to the strap of her bag at another stall. She found bracelets made from stone beads. She placed one on her wrist and held it up to the sun. The colors changed slightly in the light. She said, "This looks like sky water." The shopkeeper laughed gently and told her the stones came from the deep mountains. Nara said mountains are like tall, sleeping animals. Milo smiled. People listened when she spoke. Her words were different. Her way of seeing the world was new. But no one laughed at her. They listened. They respected her. They moved next to a small clothing shop built with wooden beams and open windows. The air inside smelled of fresh fabric and soft oil. Nara walked slowly. She ran her fingers along smooth dresses and long scarves. She tried on a robe made of green cloth. It wrapped around her body like the leaves of her jungle. She stood in front of a mirror and stared, not with pride, not with vanity, but with wonder. She asked Milo, "This is me." He nodded. "You look strong and kind." She turned once and let the robe move around her. She said, "It feels like the wind in the trees." They walked again. A shoe store came next. Nara tried on light sandals again. She walked in a circle, but then took them off. She said, "My feet still like the ground best," Milo said. "Then we keep them in the bag." She laughed and placed them back. At noon, they stopped to eat. Milo bought 2 plates of fried rice and sweet vegetables from a small food cart. They sat on a bench, near a fountain. Nara tasted each bite slowly. She said the food felt warm like sunshine inside her. Then she tasted a cold fruit drink and said, "This one is like kissing the sky." Milo almost laughed out loud, but he agreed. The drink was good as. They sat. A young boy walked by with a toy drone. It flew in circles. Nara watched it with a serious face. Milo saw her eyes change. She said, "It looks like the one that watched me." Milo nodded, "But this one is just a toy." She relaxed, but did not take her eyes off it. She whispered, "I still feel watchers above us." They finished eating and walked toward a large bookstore. Nara was curious about books. She touched the pages with care. She picked one with pictures of forests on Earth. She sat on the floor and flipped through each page. She pointed at trees and named them. She said, "Some are like my jungle. Some are strangers." She asked if she could have the book. Milo bought it for her without a word. As they left the store, a group of students walked by. One girl stared at Nara and pointed. She whispered to her friend. Milo tensed up, but Nara just smiled and waved. The girl smiled back. Shyly, Milo was proud of her. She was not hiding. She was not afraid. She was walking through the world like she belonged. Because she did, they passed a music stall. A man played a wooden flute. Nara stood still and listened. Her eyes closed. The wind blew gently around them. She said, "This sound feels like home." Milo asked, "Do you want to learn?" She looked at him with hope. "Can I?" He nodded. The man smiled and handed her a simple flute. She held it like a treasure. As the sun lowered, they returned home. Nara sat by the window again. She held the flute in her hands and looked outside. She was quiet, Milo asked, tired. She shook her head just thinking. He sat beside her, she said, I saw many things today. I liked them. I felt safe. But I still feel something, watching. Like something is not done yet. Milo did not answer right away. He knew she was right. Her past was not gone, and something was still out there, waiting. But today was not for worry. Today was for color, for choice, for walking among humans and being seen as a person. Not a creature. Not a threat, he said. Whatever comes, we face it together. She looked at him and said, Together is strong outside. The sky turned orange and pink. The stars would come soon. But for now, the city glowed with peace. And inside that small home, a girl from another world held a flute in one hand and a dream in the other. Milo woke up early. The sky outside was still dark. The stars were fading, and the city lights were turning off one by one. He walked to the kitchen and made tea. In the other room, Nara slept on a soft bed near the window. Her hand held the book about Earth's forests. She had fallen asleep while reading it. He watched her for a moment. She looked peaceful, but he knew peace was a thin layer. Underneath, something was moving. Something he could not see yet. He felt it each time she looked at the sky with worry. He heard it in her voice when she spoke about watchers. Later that morning, Milo got a message on his tablet. It came from the Earth Research Division. It said they had new information. It asked him to come alone. He read the message 3 times. Then he left quietly, letting Nara rest at the research lab. He met Dr. Kira, a soft-spoken woman with short black hair. She held a thin file in her hand. Her face looked calm, but her voice was firm. She said, "We need to talk about." Nara. Milo sat down and asked, "What did you find?" Kira opened the file and showed him a scan. It showed Nara's blood sample, not just cells, something more, something glowing, like tiny lights floating inside her. She said, "We checked her blood from the scanner data taken when she entered Earth base. We saw something strange. Her cells heal faster than any life form we know, but that's not all. Her cells react to sound, to energy, even to thoughts." Milo looked confused. "What do you mean?" Kira explained. "We played simple sounds in the lab. Her cells moved, changed shape, like they were listening. And when we focused thoughts on peace or fear, the cells responded again. Her body is not just alive. It's aware." Milo leaned back in his chair. "Are you saying she's dangerous?" Kira shook her head. "No, not dangerous, but special. Very special. We also found traces of something older in her DNA, something not from the crash, something ancient. It connects with old signals recorded long ago near the edge of human space. Signals we never understood." Milo asked. "So she's not just a lost traveler?" Kira nodded slowly. "She may be part of something bigger, a species or life form that lived before we ever found Vereen 6. Maybe something created to live with nature. Maybe something meant to guide it." Milo stood up. "She doesn't even know this about herself. She's just trying to learn, to live, to belong." Kira looked at him. "With kind eyes, I believe that, but not everyone will." That night, Milo sat with Nara near the window. He told her about the scan, about her cells, about what the lab had found. Nara stayed quiet. She looked at her hands. Then she looked outside at the stars. She said, "I always felt different. I didn't know why. Now I do." She paused. "It scares me." Milo placed his hand over hers. "You are still you. The same girl who danced with scarves. The same girl who liked cold fruit and wind chimes." She smiled a little. "I still feel like me, but now I wonder if there's more." The next day, the news spread inside the research center. Some staff wanted to study Nara more. Others warned of risk. Commander Wren returned from orbit and ordered she be placed under close watch. Milo said no. He stood in front of the door to his home and blocked the entrance. He said she was not a test subject. She had not hurt anyone. She had followed every rule. She deserved respect, but rules were not always fair that night, while Milo spoke with lawyers. And doctors, a small team, tried to enter the home quietly. They used a silent drone to open the window. They wore clean white suits and soft boots. Nara was awake. She felt them before they reached her. She stood in the middle of the room and whispered one sound, a soft tone, like a bird's call mixed with the wind. The men stopped. Their hands dropped. Their minds went still. The drone crashed to the floor. Nara walked outside and stood on the roof. The city lights below looked like tiny stars. She looked up at the sky and whispered again. The stars felt close now. Milo returned and found the team frozen in the hall. He ran past them and called her name. Nara, she turned and smiled. You came back. He rushed up and held her hand. Always, they climbed down together. The team behind them slowly returned to normal. They could not explain what happened. They said the world just went quiet. Nara looked at Milo. I think I know what I am now. I'm not just a girl from the jungle. I carry something older inside me, something that listens, something that sings with the world, Milo said. Whatever you are, you're still my friend. She nodded. And that is what matters most. Milo and Nara sat on the rooftop again. The night was quiet. The wind moved gently around them. In the distance, the city lights blinked like stars. But this night felt different. Nara could feel it in her chest. Something far away was getting closer. Milo watched her. Her face was calm, but her eyes moved quickly, like she was listening to something no one else could hear. He asked. What do you feel? She said. A voice. Not words. Just a feeling. It's calling me. He frowned. From where? She pointed to the sky, beyond the stars. Milo stood up. Is it danger? She shook her head. No. It feels like home. The next morning, Earth Research Division sent 2 large ships to orbit above the city. The ships were not from Earth. They were from the Galactic Peace Council. They had picked up signals from Nara's presence, signals no one had noticed before. They said they came in peace, but their eyes were sharp and cold. They asked for Nara. They said, she is part of an ancient bioline. She carries codes that must not fall into war hands. We request her for study and protection. Milo said no, she is not a thing to be requested. Commander Wren tried to push him aside. He said this was bigger than one human, bigger than one planet, but Milo stood his ground. She is my friend, and she belongs to herself. Not to your council, not to your labs. Nara stepped forward. Her voice was calm. I will speak with them, but only if Milo is with me. The council allowed it. A meeting was held in a glass chamber near the landing port. Inside were 3 alien leaders. One had silver skin, one had eyes like glass. The last one was tall and thin, with lines that moved. Across her arms like waves, the tall one spoke. Do you know what you are? Nara nodded. I am more than I thought. But I am still me. The silver one said, you are part of the song line, a line of life forms that hold memory in their cells. You carry the past inside you, lost voices, lost knowledge. You are rare. You must not be left on a planet that cannot protect you. Milo stepped forward. She is not a lost thing. She found her own way. She chose to live here. That means something. The glass-eyed one said, Earth is not safe. If others find out what she is, they will come for her. They will not ask. They will take. Nara looked down. I do not want to hide. I want to grow. I want to learn. I want to live free. The tall one asked, will you come with us then? We offer you shelter, study, purpose. She looked at Milo, then back at the council. I will not go far, but I will go. I need to understand what I carry. But Earth will always be my choice. I want to return when I am ready. They agreed. A week later, Nara stood at the edge of the ship ramp. Milo was beside her. He carried a small bag with things she liked, a scarf, a book, a music player, and a drawing of the jungle she once called home. She smiled and touched his arm. "Thank you." He nodded. "You came from the wild. Now you walk into the stars. That's what makes you special." She looked into his eyes. "I will come back," he said. "I'll wait." The ship lifted slowly. It glowed blue and white. It moved like it was floating on water. As it rose into the sky, Nara looked out the window. The city below was small now, but she could still see the place where she first met Milo. The place where her new life began. Months past, Milo stayed busy. He helped the research division understand peaceful life forms. He spoke in front of councils and told them Nara's story, not as a study, not as a weapon, but as a life that changed his own. Then one night, the sky lit up with green and gold colors. A soft hum filled the air. The stars shimmered like waves. People came outside to watch. A small ship landed in the same jungle where Nara once lived free. She stepped out. Her clothes were now smooth and shining. Her eyes glowed with a soft light. But her smile was the same. Milo was already there. He waited, like he promised. She ran to him and laughed. "You didn't move." He smiled. "You found your way back?" She nodded, and I brought something for Earth from behind her. Others stepped out. Not humans, not machines. Beings made of soft light and moving colors. They brought seeds, sounds, shapes that danced like music. Nara said, "I found others like me. They want to share, not take. They want to help grow a future, and just like that, Earth became part of something new, something big. Not through war, not through fear, but through one strange meeting in the jungle, one human, one alien girl. One shared path together. They changed the story, not just for Earth, but for all the stars waiting. To listen,